feel like I need to listen to the. Sorry, I was going to say I feel like I need to listen to the intro music to get me in the mood.
I think it's called Seduction. That audio.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's our track, Seduction. That says a lot.
Trying to seduce you to listening.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Right, no worries. Welcome to episode 6 of Keeping on Track. I'm Bradley Williams.
And I'm Adam Heath.
And we are going to be talking today about mental health in the workspace. But before we get into that, I was wondering. It's a funny one, actually. I want to say some stuff about things that are in the news at the minute, but it's weird because we don't really politicize this podcast, and I know we're kind of here to have fun and things like that. But I just feel that there's a lot going on in the world right now, and I feel like we should comment on that. It's
funny you said that because I was going to say to you that. As somewhat of a podcast connoisseur, I've listened to lots and lots of podcasts over the years. One thing we don't do that everyone else seems to do is a little bit of chat at the beginning, a little bit of a how you doing, how's your weekend, and you've basically taken the words out of my mouth because, normally if we picked up the phone to one another, we would have a little chat about what's going on, what's happening in the world. So feel free to comment, mate. It sounds like you've got something on.
Yeah, I do. Well, I guess I should probably caveat this by saying that this isn't. I've not written anything. This isn't a pre-prepared statement, and this hasn't been run or checked by any marketing individuals at On Track. So the views that I'm about to express are my own, and don't necessarily. I'm not necessarily speaking on behalf of On Track as a business, but I feel that. A lot of the stuff that's going on in the news, a lot of the protests and a lot of the dialogue around white supremacy and the Black Lives Matter movement has kind of reached an apex of apathy, I think, for those who would quote unquote consider themselves not to be affected by this. And I think that lines have been drawn in the sand now. And anybody who has a platform of any kind, whether that's a social media platform, a conversation with friends, a podcast, anything at all, I think that we're all in a position to say that things need to change. There are a lot of accepted forms of white supremacy and institutionalized racism going on every day throughout the world, and it's not just systematic within America. I think it's a global issue and a global concern, and I think that we all are in a position where anything that we can do to contribute to the dissolving of those issues and those prejudices and that bigotry, I think we should all play our part in that, and so I guess whatever you can do in whatever way you can do it, if you can positively contribute to the support and the sustaining of the black community and in terms of helping to eradicate these things, I think that we should do that. And for what it's worth, I'm very saddened and I'm very frustrated by a lot of the things that I'm seeing going on at the moment. So that's kind of some of my thoughts on that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Adam, but
I think pretty conclusive there, dude. I was going to ask whether you sort of engage every day with the news. I know, you'd be forgiven for saying I'm checking out for the weekend. I'm not going to particularly watch or read too much. Have you been keeping on top of things over the last 2 or 3 days over the weekend? Or?
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of the stuff and reading as much as I can. And
I only ask because I think if you checked out, you'd be, as dire as things felt 3, 4, 5 days ago, it's even worse now, which is hard to believe when you look at what's happening across all parts of the United States of America. It's quite remarkable.
Even yesterday we started to get protests in London, and I think there was in Milan and Berlin, I think, with some of the other cities that had it as well.
But thus far, I don't remember seeing any of the UK police forces attacking people.
No.
Not that I've seen, at least. But in America, that seems the standard at the moment. I think there's also potentially anger from completely different places that's now being vented and shared. Do you know what I mean? It does concern me about what's going to happen later in the year with elections coming up. That people, there's a stage almost been set for acceptable violence, I guess.
Yeah.
And the government and the police have encouraged and almost endorsed it in some way. It's a bizarre situation that we're living through.
Yeah, and one of the other things as well is that a lot of people have been kind of doing it with the best of intentions, but obviously trying to maybe make this about all lives matter rather than Black Lives Matter. And it's true, all lives do matter, and I think that there is a time and a place for dialogue around racism as a general rule of thumb. But at the moment, this is specifically a focus on the black struggle, because that's something that happens every time you hear about someone's died in custody, or the word execution has been used recently, and it kind of almost feels like an execution, doesn't it? But they're always black individuals, they're always young black men, and I don't think you could ever sit there and go, oh, well, that person's dangerous, or that person has a history of this, that, and the other. It doesn't matter, that it's irrelevant what someone's history is, that you don't get to kneel on someone's neck until they die, or you don't get to kneel on someone's chest or hold someone down while they're screaming and panicking and calling out for air. And whether or not that directly or indirectly led to someone's death, that person would have been alive had those activities not taken place. And I've got some friends in the UK who are Chinese and Korean and have experienced a lot of racism around the whole COVID thing. And that's a whole different discussion altogether, but that's also something we need to be looking at, not necessarily in regards to the Black Lives Matter movement, but I think it's easy for us to sit here and say, oh, America's racist, America's got this. We've got problems in our own country as well that we need to stand up and we need to hold people accountable for. But yeah, I don't want to make this politicized rant. Obviously, I've made my views clear, and I know you obviously share very similar views on this, Adam. And I think, like I say, whatever we can do to contribute to the succession of beating this bigotry, I think we owe it to individuals to do that. And whether that is, like I say, posting things, going and being part of a political march, or in a non-violent protest, or writing letters to our MPs, or vocalising in whatever way we can, I think we should, as long as it's intended to contribute towards that dissolving of that system of racism. I think that we should be doing that. Anyway, rant over, I guess, for the time being. I guess we should bring our guests in, don't you think?
Yep, let's do it.
Cool. Okay, so joining us today from Headtorch, based in Glasgow, we've got Amy McDonald and Angus Robinson. Welcome both.
Thank you.
Hello, how are you?
How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Yourselves?
Good. Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad at all. What I love about doing these intros is that we have this weird 30 seconds where I have to pretend that we haven't already spoken, which we have. But now the formalities are out of the way. Let's just get into this. So I'm just going to introduce the film for today, and then we're going to ask Amy and Angus a little bit about what it is that they do at Headtorch, and kind of we can talk a little bit about that. So as we've already mentioned, the topic for today is mental health and mental well-being, and the film, as I think Adam you've already mentioned, is Fight Club. And for those that have never seen Fight Club, it tells the story of a disillusioned and disenfranchised young professional who coasts through his life suffering from insomnia due to the constant jet lag of travelling around the country, and he finds himself making a new friend in a strange character known as Tyler Durden, and the two of them very quickly form a bond that results in the formation of an underground fight club. And with that fight club, they bit by bit start to find themselves torn asunder again, as Tyler becomes more and more involved in radical ideologies and activities. And that's kind of the general crux of the film. There's probably a much quicker and easier way to describe it, but I felt like this is important to the conversation to kind of have a broader view. Now, I know that obviously none of you have seen the film. We've already discussed that.
I've seen the film, Brad.
You have? Yeah, okay then.
Yeah,
go on then. You've seen it. Go on then. When did you see it last?
I was actually just going to say we should probably flag as well. This is a film of some heritage now. This is 21 years ago, 1999. It's crazy to think, but it is. So that's a long time.
Yeah.
Culturally speaking, and I reckon I saw that probably 2005 or something. 5-6 years after it came out, probably. And I've seen it a couple of times since. It's a stunning piece of work. I always said at college that I wasn't interested in watching movies that film students were supposed to watch, and I would actively avoid those movies. I feel like this became the kind of almost a more recent version of that. Film students probably should see it because there is something to learn from it. And I did relent, and I watched it, and it's an incredible and striking piece of cinema.
I love the way that you said, "Of course I've seen this," as if that's like your kind of, as if that's your general rule of thumb. Of course I've seen this movie.
Yeah,
but
okay.
yeah, no, it's a cultural touchstone, isn't it? And and the reason that we chose that is obviously because the film has certain elements of it around mental health and mental illness, and the spoiler alert. I'm sorry, Amy and Angus, if you haven't seen the film, but the spoiler of this is that near the end of the movie, we realise the narrator, and I'm going to use the name Jack because there's this whole thing about he reads these articles of I'm Jack's appendix, I'm Jack's colon, and so he's almost inadvertently known as Jack. Fun fact, I think it actually comes out that his real name is Sebastian or something in a sequel that Chuck Palahniuk written, but we'll call him Jack for now. And it turns out near the end of the movie that Tyler Durden is actually a figment of his imagination, and that he's created Tyler Durden to escape the mundanity and the isolation of his own existence.
Isn't there an element that Tyler Durden's who he wants to be? It's the kind of version of who he likes to be.
It's like a projection of who he thinks he wants to be. And obviously that's a very extreme and Hollywoodized version of schizophrenia or multiple personality disorders, etc. But the underlying thing about the film is that it is about dysfunctional people who are angry at a world that they can't find a place in. And there are moments in the film where he is in a corporate environment and he has a boss, and the boss kind of sees him coming to work with like a black eye or blood on his shirt, or he's got his teeth are broken and he's kind of spitting blood, and he's being very, 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 very wayward, but the boss never does anything about it really. He just kind of treats him like, oh, you're an idiot, and all these sorts of things. But so that's kind of why Fight Club is been used in the context that we're using it today, because obviously Amy and Angus, I know that at Headtorch you do a lot of work with businesses around helping and supervising individuals and looking after their well-being and mental health. Is that a fair kind of summation of what you guys do, or would you maybe prefer to describe it in a different way?
Well, we aim to enable businesses to create cultural change, really. So it's about creating a mentally healthy culture. Mm-hmm. So it's looking at it, as the business as a whole. How are you caring for each other? How are you looking after each other? What's your ethos when it comes to supporting each other's mental health? How important do you place that within your organization? If somebody walked into your organization right now, what would they notice in terms of how people are supporting and looking out for each other? And then, so from that respect, it's about working with, ideally we would work with everyone within an organization, and we start at the top, because you've got to get that bit right, working with the senior team on board so that they get it. And then it's about enabling people to have supportive conversations and look out for each other, but knowing that they are not doctors or counsellors, and that's not why they're in the job they're in. Mm-hmm. And that's not what their That's not what we're saying they need to be. Absolutely the reverse of that. It's about saying just be a human being and look out for each other, and then signpost people on to the correct or to possible support options that they could follow up with.
And so in regards to that, what are some of the are there sort of common things that you come across, or sort of common elements that you teach and educate people around, or is it very much bespoke to each business that you work with?
I think at the core, we take a very proactive approach to mental health. So the analogy we make is that if you put somebody on the roof of a building, you don't wait for them to fall off until you do something. You prevent them from falling off. And mental health at work, we think, is the same. So if you put people under more pressure, you expect more from them, you have less resources, and so on. There's a possibility there that you'll have some kind of workplace stress event. So it's about being proactive, and that's about, it is about getting the culture right, but it's also, we talk a lot about mental fitness as well, and so people intuitively know how to be physically fit, whether you do it or not. But everybody knows how to be physically fit. Not everybody knows how to be mentally fit, and so we are proactive. We take people through being mentally fit. And that whole self-care thing about looking after yourself, and that's kind of some of the keystones, if you like, of what we do.
And also, it's very much about empowering people to have conversations with others. There's really, I think it comes from lack of knowing. People are scared of having a conversation if they spot someone struggling. So we basically demystify that whole thing, so that people understand that actually it's actually just about having a supportive conversation with someone, and you're not there to fix it. So a lot of the keystones of what we're delivering is simply about how do you spot signs when somebody's struggling, and how do you have that supportive conversation, and then what are the support options you can signpost them onto, and it's giving people real practical skills that they can use on a day-to-day basis.
So it's interesting you say about listening to people, because in Fight Club there's a scene when that Jack meets Marla Singer and they kind of talk for the first time, and they're at a group. I think it's some sort of cancer support group, and they're trying to confront each other, but whilst cuddling, because everyone in the room cuddles with each other, and it's that support network. And so they're kind of, from an outside perspective, they look like they're supporting each other, but internally they're bickering about, you're stealing this away from me. And she says, why do you do this? And he said, I don't know, I think it's because people really listen to you instead of waiting for their turn to speak. And that's interesting, because that fits into what you're saying, is that he's in a crisis. He's physically unwell. He's got this insomnia. He's mentally unstable. He's crying out for attention. He feels isolated. He has an inability to connect with people, and he just wants someone to talk to, someone to sit there and listen to the things that he has to say. And he doesn't get that in any environment. So I think that on that assumption, then, could we suggest that sometimes maybe the workplace may be one of the only places, or one of the few places then, that with this kind of correct mentality in place, that people might get that as the only opportunity to speak about some of the things that they're facing?
Yeah, I mean, for some people, work can be there can be absolute chaos going on in their life outside of work, and work can be the place where, the sanctuary for them. And yeah, it might be a place where they feel more in control, for example, of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, and they might have people there that they can go and speak to and be listened to. But I think listening is such a powerful tool to help and enable others to talk about what's important to them. But it's also a constant reminder, because we're really good at jumping in and saying, "Oh, this is what you should do." oh, and that happened to me before. This is what happened to me, blah, blah, blah. And you take it to yourself, where actually it's these kinds of conversations, you have to put your own ego to the side. It's not about you, it is about the other person. And it's all about, listening and asking open questions and being with them and let them talk about what they need to talk about in their own. Yeah.
As real kind of fans of film and cinema and TV and film geeks that me and Brad are, I'm wondering what influence or impact cinema, TV has on the kind of conversations. Does Hollywood help, bring to light some of these issues and help people talk about mental health issues, or does it have the reverse impact, in fact?
I think what is helping is, at the moment, people are talking much more openly about their mental health. And, especially since, we've entered this pandemic, there's a lot more talk about mental health. There's a lot of concern about it at the moment, but there's also people talking about self-care, looking after yourself. And so that if one of the positives that has come out of the pandemic, it is this whole thing about the people talking more openly about mental health and being more willing to seek support. I think in terms of Hollywood and films and things like that, I guess yes, you see people struggling, you see them fighting a fight, and coming out of that is a bit of a formula, but that's again it demonstrates usually the bad things that are happening are temporary things. That's not the way life is. It's usually a temporary thing. And that's one of the messages that we go over to people is, you're having a bad time, and it's about digging in, it's about getting support, it's about talking about it, having somebody there who will listen to you. But that is a temporary thing as well. The bad time is a temporary thing. There's better times ahead of you. That's an important message to get over too.
Because I know that you, maybe as an offshoot of that, I know that you guys have almost embraced film and certain types of media within your solutions and the things that you put forward. I know we were talking a little bit about this the other day when we did our introductions, but Amy, I think am I right in thinking that is it yourself or one of your colleagues that's a bit of an amateur actor and has been producing some videos within the context of some of the training courses that you provide?
Yeah, well, I take not offence. What's the word? Not quite as strong as that, to the amateur bit there.
That's a bit of a prod there, to be honest. And it
what? What? So my background, well, is very eclectic, but it includes theatre and education, and so using drama as a tool for learning is really, really powerful. I mean, since time began, we've been learning through stories, haven't we? And it's about engaging people, hearts and minds, and also, so when people are touched, when something makes them angry or sad, or frustrated or annoyed, that can be a really good motivator for change. So when you're watching a drama and you're connecting, empathizing in with that anger, that sadness, whatever's going on, that is the motivation for you to go, that's not right. That's kind of things happening in our office, and I don't agree with it, and that has to change. And also I can see the impact that's having on others. I can see the detrimental effect it's having on others. So we use drama very much as a stimulus to engage people and consider, the impact of what's happening on others and how they can do things differently, as well as using it for real-time practice in having conversations, so that people feel really confident when they've left the sessions that, okay, so I practiced it with that, with that character in that situation. I've had a go. It's not as difficult as I thought it might be.
So I rescind what I said then. I won't say amateur. I say you are a professional actor with a rich history in the medium. So I apologise for that. Could you kind of tell us then what? I'm an organisation. I approach Headtorch and say we'd like you to come in and talk a little bit, to our individuals or to set up a program for us. What does that conversation look like, and where do things go from there? Do you have to are there certain topics that you cover? Do you just cover a broad range of things? Do you ask if there's any specific issues that are arising in that company that can be met head on? What does that conversation look like?
First of all, it's about understanding the company, the organisation, and understanding where they are, because that is very, very varied right across the world. That is incredibly varied. Some organisations are doing it really well, others are not doing anything, and then there's a whole lot in between that. And so it's about understanding that. We then have different solutions for different levels within an organisation. So Headtorch 11's for the guys right at the top. We have Headtorch Aware and Headtorch Works for the line managers. We have Headway for the shop floor and direct staff. So it's and that's just a snapshot of what we've got. And it's really important that is tailored to the audience. The guys at the top of an organisation are looking for something very different from the line managers. The line managers need very different skills from the people they're managing and so on, So it is all tailored to the different layers within an organisation.
Are there any particular topics or mental health concerns that you find arise more? So are we dealing more with common elements of depression, or are there things that people are experiencing more often and are more common in the workplace, or is it still a very broad, generalized term for for example, anxiety and all the different areas that can cover, or do we find, or are you finding that there's that actually, we can almost pinpoint these three things are the biggest concerns right now? What are you finding from that side of things?
Well, definitely there has been a threefold, probably more, increase in the rise in anxiety and depression in the workplace. It's really interesting, actually. We do a conference once a year, and Professor McDonald from University of Glasgow, he spoke at one of those events, and he talked about the fact that now the main reason for absenteeism is stress and anxiety. It used to be musculoskeletal, but now it's anxiety and depression. And he talked about the fact that actually up until sort of late 80s, early 90s, when you went to the doctor and they said, I've got a sore back, the doctor would say, go home and lie on a wooden board for 3 weeks. Yeah. So you would rest your body, but you would also rest your mind. Yeah. And then after that, the doctor changed, didn't he? And he said, what did he start telling us to do? He started telling us to continue working. You've got a sore back, keep moving around, keep going to work. So you never actually got that rest, that, your mind never got the rest that it used to get. So that may be one reason. Obviously, there's rise in technology and all sorts of other things going on as well. But there was a distinct change around about that time in terms of what was the biggest reason for absence. Having said all that, our focus when we're going in is not about diagnosing people, and it's not about encouraging others to go around diagnosing people. The focus is very much on, so you spot the signs that somebody's struggling, and we do a kind of big brainstorm on that. And it's amazing how much we notice in others when they're not, when something's not congruent, we notice it sharply, So it's about understanding, spotting those signs, and being able to have a conversation, regardless of whether somebody's got stress or they've got clinical depression, they have bipolar. it doesn't matter. It's simply about having a conversation and, and enabling people to do that in a supportive way.
At the end of the day, our big goals are cultural change and behavioural change, and getting organisations so they are culturally healthy, and that is both physically and mentally. We are obviously focused on the mental side of that, and then also behavioural change. So what happened in the past, what was acceptable in the past, is no longer acceptable, and there's big benefits to doing this. This is not fluffy. It's not nice to have. It's really, really important. Financially, there's a payback, and a really good payback. Productivity increases. Organisations that treat mental health seriously attract talent, they retain talent. Also legally, and this is becoming more and more important, mental health at work is already covered by the Health and Safety at Work Act and the Equalities Act. And the Health and Safety Executive are now investigating organisations where there is a case to answer, where mental health has been treated really badly in organisations. That's a game changer. That's the difference between, so-and-so's gone off with stress, we've lost that person for 60 days or whatever it is until they come back. But now if the Health and Safety Executive are coming in and actually investigating that, that's a complete game changer. And it's so there's lots of really good reasons why this is really important, and it also is a priority for organisations to do.
Jeff McDonald, he's a former global VP HR at Unilever, and he's one of our senior advisors. He now does all things to eradicate stigma of mental health at work, and he talks about vulnerability being the biggest form of courage. There's strength in diversity, and that somebody, if you've had experience of mental ill health, you're very likely to be bringing incredible qualities into the workplace, of empathy, of understanding, of knowledge, of caring, of the ability to spot signs of ill health in others, and so on and so forth. So it's very much about creating that culture that celebrates that diversity, the fact that we all bring different things from our own life experiences.
In the circumstances that you've discussed, that if Jack's employer in Fight Club were in similar circumstances, he probably would be investigated for malpractice or something, because there's photocopies of like Fight Club rules. These guys come into work with black eyes. There's a whole scene where he goes on this rant about, you should be careful. That Jack says to him about, whoever wrote that might be a nutcase and might snap and come to work and shoot everybody, and having all these conversations, and then it culminates with him going into his boss's office and beating himself up in the office and blaming it on the boss, and then getting made, essentially being put on furlough, as it were. And all of that comes from the fact that the boss he recognises that there's issues, but fails to do anything about it and fails to help. And maybe the movie might have had a very different outcome had Jack received the support that he needed to in the workplace. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily the be all and end all and the only place that we can receive help, but we spend a lot of time at work, don't we? And I think if our colleagues and our co-workers and our bosses are going to notice in us when we're not right, when things are off kilter, or when something's not quite as it should be, and the days of ignoring that or writing that off or expecting someone to work past it are long gone.
Right now, especially, I think that the message to organisations is the importance of talking to each other, and especially having one-to-ones and regular one-to-ones. So whether that's with your team or with manager to the team members, because in order to spot signs, in order to understand how someone's really doing, you really need to know that person. You need to know what's going on, and so I would just say keep talking, and it's about chatting. It's not all work talk. It's about chatting about how are you doing, what's going on, just to check in with people.
I would also add is about perspective, and that is again really important at the moment. And it is given if you're going to do something like, say you're doing a big presentation or you've got an exam or whatever, it's normal to feel anxious. You should feel anxious, yeah, because it's going to motivate you. When I'm riding my mountain bike down a really steep slope, I feel anxious, and that's normal, yeah. It's safeguarding me, it's preventing me from doing things which are going to hurt me. Equally, if something, has bad has happened in your life, it's normal to feel down about that. Yeah, that's normal, but equally that can be a signal to change. There's research coming out saying that feeling down about something is part of human evolution. It's one of the things that's driven us forward, and it's when those things become chronic that there is a problem, that needs to be addressed. But it is about understanding these things and recognizing them, about talking about them, and taking positive action on them.
Can I just check? Can I just ask? I'm imagining that some organisations or businesses might potentially fall into the trap of feeling that they need to do some kind of exercise today, would do a kind of mental health initiative program, but miss the kind of long-term commitment that's probably required. Is that the case, that you could fall into the trap of thinking you can have a kind of a quick fix today and then it goes away, and actually we need to think more long-term?
Yeah, I think as Angus said earlier, every organisation really is at a different place when it comes to supporting mental health, but it has to be the long-term picture that's in mind. It's not a quick fix, and it's not a one-off. It's not doing something nice on one day will do you for the rest of the year. We've all got mental health 365 days of the year, so it needs to be supported equally. Yeah.
This is a journey. The way we look at it, it is a journey. And if you think about where physical health and safety was, say, 40 years ago, it's now in a completely different place. You walk past a building site, they quite often have a sign up saying how many days they've had accident-free. Yeah. Mental health is also on that journey, and is at generally speaking, is at a much earlier stage of that journey. Yeah.
That line's going to stay with me after this. I think we've all got a kind of state of mental health 365 days of the year, and that's going to stay with me, because that's a revelation to think of it in those terms.
Good.
Well, thank you so much for your contributions today, Amy and Angus. And if people wanted to learn a little bit more about Headtorch or get in contact with you, what would be the best way to do that?
Sure. They can come to our website, which is headtorch.org, and they can contact us through there. Excuse me. And we're delighted to speak to folks about what they're doing, what they'd like to do. And to let them know a little bit more about what we deliver and how we do it. Thanks very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
And enjoy the sunshine, won't you?
Yeah, you too.
Later on.
All right then. Take care, guys.
Okay,
thank you so much.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
It's really interesting having had that conversation, and I feel almost a bit silly, maybe, that Fight Club was, or it seems to have been for me, the kind of first film to address mental health. I'm sure that's not the case, but it felt like, for I guess at the age that we were when we saw it, it was suddenly a film about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And actually listening to the guys talk as eloquently as they do about this topic, Fight Club isn't by any stretch of the imagination a film about mental health or to learn about mental health. It's just a film that happens to touch on it. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I'd feel wrong to say, oh, if you're interested in mental health, go watch Fight Club, because that isn't what it's for, that film. But an interesting exploration of some of the issues, for sure.
Yeah, well, I think what makes Fight Club a strange beast is that, like I said earlier, on a surface level, it's a very angry millennial sort of. Is it millennial, Generation X? I don't know, but it's that sort of turn of the century. We feel lost. We don't know where we stand. We're angry. We just want to do something so that we leave an impact on history. And so you've got that at a surface level, but I do think, and I think even Chuck Palahniuk said it, it's just a film about lonely people. And actually it's about searching for meaning in your life, and you can't fill a void with empty gestures. You can't, if you don't feel alive, there are healthier ways to experience life. It's not just, I want to have a fight because it'll make me feel better about myself, because I felt some adrenaline, and for 10 minutes or 5 minutes I felt something before I went back to the numbness of my daily life. If you're in that position, then there's a wider issue there that needs to be addressed. It's not just do this and ultimately I think that is the core message of the movie, which is why he gets rid of Tyler, because Tyler's dangerous. Tyler represents unchecked narcissism and aggression and blame culture. He's very much a hindrance to Jack's development as a human being, which is why he ends up with Marla at the end of the movie. And I think that there's something to be said about that. And I guess I saw Fight Club when it first came out. I felt really proud. I was 16 years old. I felt really proud I'd managed to sneak into an 18 rated film. I sat there, watched the film. It blew me away. And I was like, oh wow, this movie speaks to me in so many ways. And I've watched it through the years, and it's been a few years since I watched it last. And then when I watched it the other day, I actually felt, wow, this movie doesn't really speak to me anymore. It actually feels weirdly dated. Like the values that it carries seem to feel not part of society anymore. Fight Club's become this carbon dated piece of cinematic history that we can reflect on and go, oh, isn't that nice? Wasn't that a fun film? But I think the only thing that stays current is like you say, the mental health element of it.
What a year, by the way, 1999 was for movies, because you're talking about identity, and alongside Fight Club, The Matrix, 1999, about reality, I guess, the mundanity of life. Also, another of my favourites being John Malkovich. Identity.
The obsession with celebrity, and once again an empty character who projects himself into someone more meaningful.
I find it crazy that all those three films, and many more as well, obviously, all landed at the same time. Interesting and not surprising, perhaps, that the film can reflect cultural twists and turns and kind of sentiment. And that was a time for those movies.
I wonder whether, because they're approaching the millennium as well, there was a lot of existentialism kicking about.
I read as well that when Chuck, how do I pronounce his surname?
Palahniuk.
I read that when he was inspired to write the book Fight Club originally, he'd been on a camping trip and had a physical altercation. And when he came back to work and he was bruised and swollen and very visually, had been in an altercation, his co-workers just completely avoided asking about what happened or why, or digging into anything in his private life. Right. And that was a kind of inspiration for writing Fight Club. And I find that fascinating, how true to life, I guess, what Fight Club's showing is to his experience, actually, is that, people were going to see physical signs of some kind of stress, strain, whatever it might be. In this case, it was a physical altercation, and choose, because that's his private life, to leave it and not ask. And what if they had asked? What if they had kind of reached out and tried to be someone to listen? That could completely change the course of someone's life.
His name is pronounced Palahniuk, so I pronounced it completely wrong. Palahniuk. So for the record, I've mispronounced his name for the entire podcast, and it is Palahniuk.
It's okay. No one will hold you.
No, and I doubt that Chuck's even listening to this podcast. But if he is, Chuck, I'm sorry, bud.
So where are we placing Fight Club in your league table of cinematic masterpieces?
I think as a narrative piece of storytelling, I think it's still a very interesting and engaging film. I think stylistically and visually it's amazing, and obviously you'd expect nothing less of Fincher at the kind of pinnacle of his creative output. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to slap a 4 on it. I don't know if I can
do that, Brad, because everything gets a 4 with you.
No. because it's not an amazing film anymore, or you could argue ever. But I wouldn't say that it's a mediocre film. Like I use 3 for a mediocre.
So you've given Uncut Gems, Contagion, Romeo and Juliet, and Fight Club all 4?
No, I think Contagion got a 4, and then Romeo and Juliet got 4.5, didn't it?
Is it? And Uncut Gems?
I think Uncut Gems got a 4.5 or a 4. I can't remember now. All I'm saying is, like, listen, if a film is brilliant, then it should be recognised as brilliant. But if a film has room for improvement, but it's not just average, then 4 seems to be the most appropriate place for it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Let's see. When we get to 10, if they're all
if they're all 4, but then I'm picking the films, right? So I'm not going to turn around and say, "Hey, look, should we go and watch Trolls?" And then sit there and go, "Oh, it's a 2-star movie." I did that with Enter the Dragon, but that I genuinely watched Enter the Dragon and realised as I was watching it, wow, like that was by accident. I picked it after I was watching it and thought, wow, this is not a great film. But I shall try to pick something more middling of the road. Actually, next week, why don't you pick a film?
I've actually got a little something that
and I'm going to purposely give it a 3-star. No, I won't. If it's good, I won't. Or if it's crap, I won't.
Sounds good to me.
Cool.
I'll work on it.
Okay, lovely. Right. Well, my friends, have a good rest of your day, won't you? And keep safe. And I shall speak to you soon.
Till next time.
Cool. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.